knows you're alone. Although several of the maniac's victims in this movie are not alone. Maybe a better title would have been He Thinks You're Alone, or He Guesses That You're Alone. So when it comes to 80s slasher movies, particularly early 80s slasher movies, because there were so many and of varying quality, people tend to assign them into one of three categories, from A-list or tier slasher movies to C-list or tier slasher movies. Now, we can argue over which slasher goes into which category all day, but just assuredly as you'd find Friday the 13th on the A-list, I'm sure most slasher fans would firmly place He Knows You're Alone on the C-list. Now, that's not to say that He Knows You're Alone is a bad movie or not worthy of your time. There are plenty of slasher movies that I would put on the C-list that I find perfectly entertaining, just not on the same level as Friday the 13th, The Burning, or Halloween 2. As a matter of fact, I've revisited some of my C-list slashers over the past couple of years, and upon rewatching them, found them to be much better than I remember. For example, Final Exam. Now granted, it took a number of revisits before I warmed to that movie, but I eventually warmed to it nevertheless. He Knows You're Alone is a movie that I first saw many years ago on VHS. I rented it from my local video store because it looked like a slasher movie. And expecting a slasher movie, or at least the kind of slasher movie that I was accustomed to at the time, I ended up feeling pretty meh about He Knows You're Alone. Unlike Final Exam, I didn't feel the desire to revisit He Knows You're Alone as often. I know I rewatched it at least once over the years and felt pretty much the same about it. Would the third time be the charm with He Knows You're Alone? Let's find out. He Knows You're Alone starts out strong with a nifty movie within a movie sequence featuring Friday the 13th Part 2's Russell Todd. We transition to focusing on two young women in the crowd. One of them happens to be a bride-to-be. She ends up getting more than just a chill up her spine during a climactic scene that makes the entire audience jump. From there we meet Amy, another bride-to-be, who the maniac takes a liking to. He'd like to stab her, is what I mean. Along for the ride is a detective who's crossed paths with the maniac before and is bound and determined to take him down. Now, one thing about He Knows You're Alone that I'm sure throws a lot of slasher movie fans off is the fact that you pretty much know who the killer is right off the bat. Writer Scott Parker and director Armand Mastriani claim to have not wanted to make a slasher movie here, though I don't know if that term had even been coined yet, with He Knows You're Alone having been released just 3 months after the original Friday the 13th. Parker and Mastriani wanted to make a suspense thriller, only He Knows You're Alone isn't that suspenseful, and it's far too reliant on jump scares than tension building. Parker and Mastriani clearly tried to take a page or two out of John Carpenter's Handbook, attempting to make the maniac here an omnipresent force, perpetually lurking in the shadows. If this maniac thing doesn't work out for Ray, that's the killer's name, then he would no doubt be an expert cat burglar, because Ray is everywhere, and he's as stealthy as a samurai. Hell, even Ray's victims don't make a peep. Ray actually offs one guy while Amy is in the next room. There is no door that separates the two rooms, and the two rooms are only a few feet apart. Ray doesn't even cover the victim's mouth while dispatching them. The victim just looks really surprised that this guy has popped up out of nowhere and is now stabbing them. A lot. As for Ray himself, instead of Michael Myers' trademark heavy breathing, he does crazy eyes the whole time. We get a couple of scenes copied pretty much directly from Halloween, and the score is Halloween Light. And though He Knows You're Alone sports a pretty respectable body count, all the kills are pretty tame and bloodless. As a matter of fact, one character is decapitated, and the only mess it leaves behind is a small stain on the rug. We also get at least 2 sequences in which a character is murdered by knife, but their companion doesn't realize that they're dead until they're literally cuddled up right beside them and discover this red liquidy substance on their fingers. Why do people never recognize blood in a horror movie? They're always rubbing it between their fingers, smelling it, or even tasting it before they determine that it's blood. What is this? Oh my God. However, the movie's biggest flaws have to do with its leisurely pacing, attempts at character development that just aren't necessary, and there's way too much relationship drama, not just involving Amy and her ex Marvin, but one of Amy's friends who's having an affair with her philosophy professor. On top of that, the movie turns a blind eye to aspects of the story that could actually carry some weight, such as going deeper into the detective's hatred for the maniac and his desire for vengeance. And what happened to Amy's fiancé? He's MIA for 80% of this movie. Where is he? What's he doing? Shouldn't he be planning his wedding with Amy? Does he know about Amy and Marvin? Or is he even aware of the fact that Amy is being stalked by a maniac? You know, I'm really surprised that I've gone this long into my review for He Knows You're Alone without pointing out what the movie is most famous for. He Knows You're Alone was actually the big screen debut for Dana Barron. And that guy from Bosom Buddies. The finale of the film is also a letdown. It's very anticlimactic, and we get a one final scare tacked on that just feels thrown together as if it were part of a last-minute reshoot or something. So yeah, third time wasn't a charm for He Knows You're Alone. It's got some nice moments, the cast is good, and the characters are fairly likable. However, the leisurely pace, the lack of suspense, and the lackluster kills are a major drag. If you're a hardcore fan of 80s horror with a lot of patience and not in a particularly bloodthirsty mood, then give He Knows You're Alone a shot. Otherwise, I'd say look elsewhere to fulfill your slasher needs. As far as this new release from Scream Factory is concerned, this release sports a new 2K scan of the Enter Positive. I thought the picture quality on this release was really good. This is the best He Knows You're Alone has ever looked. The picture quality is crisp, it's clean, there's a nice level of detail and color grading. The color red in particular pops, which is unfortunate because there's so little red in the way of blood in this movie, but everything else that's red, jackets, sweaters, whatnot, really pops. I'd give the picture quality on this release a solid 4 out of 5. Same thing with the audio quality. He Knows You're Alone both looked and sounded fantastic on this release from Scream Factory. As far as extras are concerned, first up we have an interview with director Armand Mastriani. It's 13 minutes and 25 seconds in length. Mr. Mastriani discusses his early filmmaking ventures. He discusses meeting Otto Preminger and eventually getting the gig to direct He Knows You're Alone. Mr. Mastriani discusses not wanting to make an explicitly bloody film, the casting process, MGM distributing the film, how it launched his directing career, and more. Next, we have an interview with producer Robert DeMia. It's 9 minutes and 40 seconds in length. Mr. DeMia discusses meeting and becoming friends with Armand Mastriani, shooting He Knows You're Alone in Staten Island, why the film still resonates with people today, and more. Next, we get an interview with actor Don Scarnito. It's 12 minutes and 8 seconds in length. Mr. Scardino discusses how he got cast in He Knows You're Alone and working with Armand Mastriani. He discusses his character in the film, meeting and working with Tom Hanks, and later in his career he directed an episode of 30 Rock that featured Tom Hanks, and the two were able to catch up. Mr. Scardino discusses why he thinks the film has been so impactful for people, and more. Next, we have an interview with writer Scott Parker. It's 7 minutes and 46 seconds in length. Mr. Parker discusses conceptualizing the movie within a movie opening, Tom Hanks' character's demise in the film that was written but ultimately not shot. He discusses how well Armand Mastriani handled the low budget and tight shooting schedule and what he learned as a writer from working on the film, and more. We get the theatrical trailer and TV spots, and we get an audio commentary with director Armand Mastriani and writer Scott Parker. This is a really nice Blu-ray release for He Knows You're Alone from the folks over at Scream Factory. Both the picture quality and the sound quality are fantastic, and we get a plethora of new extras. If you're a fan of He Knows You're Alone, then this release is a no-brainer. If you've seen He Knows You're Alone, please let me know your thoughts on the film down in the comments section below. If you've pre-ordered this release from Scream Factory, please let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments section below. Also, if you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up and share it on social media. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. A huge shout out to all my patrons and channel members. I appreciate your generosity and support of my channel. Become a patron today and join me for exclusive live streams, get early access to videos, and have a say in what movies I review on my channel. Become a channel member and get access to exclusive badges and emotes to use when I stream. Links are in the description. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.